Each new Battlefield announcement is a seismic event in the video game world. Yet, recent Battlefield launches have left the gaming community disappointed, with Battlefield 2042 pushing the series to the brink of collapse. So, what went wrong? How did Battlefield went from a holy grail for millions of gamers and a technological pioneer in first-person shooters to an industry punchline and EA's cash cow? Was Battlefield ever truly about pleasing players, or was it always driven by financial motives? And most importantly, can Battlefield rise again? Today on The Games Guru. In the early 90s, a little-known Swedish company called Digital Illusions was quietly developing pinball games and racing simulators for the widely popular family personal computer systems Amiga. Meanwhile, in Stockholm, Refraction Games, led by Patrik Söderlund, was diligently working on perfecting their 3D game engine. Unfortunately, their early attempts resulted in mediocre racing games and a rather disappointing title called Codename Eagle, which, despite innovative features like drivable land, sea, and air vehicles, all suffered from poor production quality. However, fate intervened when in the year 2000, Digital Illusions acquired Refraction Games, renaming themselves into Digital Illusions Creative Entertainment, or DICE, and having Refraction's team becoming an integral part of the company, with Patrik Söderlund joining as CEO. Along with the acquisition, DICE also inherited an early build of a game that would soon become a household name: Battlefield 1942. Back in 2002, if you were to play an online shooter, your choices were limited to Counter-Strike and various arena shooters. That's why the launch of Battlefield 1942 was a game-changer, quickly seizing the spotlight among gamers. It offered a choice of 5 distinct playable classes and the ability to operate a range of military vehicles, from tanks to bombers, all set against the backdrop of the widely popular World War II theme. And all of that on a massive maps that could accommodate up to 64 players simultaneously. Battlefield 1942 stood out as a unique and unparalleled experience. There was no need to search the map for rocket launcher or play an eco round to save up for a sniper rifle. Every weapon, ammunition, and vehicle was readily available upon spawning, allowing players to concentrate on their tactics rather than resource management. These game features encourage players to adopt a strategic approach, working cohesively with their team, often with minimal communication, offering a truly novel experience. It's no surprise that upon its release in September of 2002 for Windows and Mac OS, Battlefield 1942 caused a sensation in the gaming world. Multiple agencies like PC Gamer and GameSpy named Battlefield to be the best computer game of 2002. It sold over 3 million copies globally, ranking it alongside other celebrated titles such as Mafia and Resident Evil 0. The official servers for Battlefield 1942 were shut down in 2014, yet a number of custom servers remain active, occasionally reaching full capacity of 64 players. The game's monumental success fostered a dedicated community of gamers who were passionate about creating memes, custom servers, and extensive mods. While DICE did release notable DLCs like Road to Rome and Secret Weapons of War, the community often favored free mods, such as Forgotten Hope, Eve of Destruction, or Desert Combat. Let's delve deeper into the latter. Desert Combat was the brainchild of a group of friends in New York, operating under the name Trauma Studios. Released in 2003, this mod introduced modern military equipment like helicopters and AC-130s, shifting the narrative from World War II to the Gulf War. The mod's impact was so profound that even GameSpy declared it the mod of the year. Patrik Söderlund, taking note of the surge in Battlefield sales, proposed to acquire Trauma Studios for $500,000. Trauma Studios accepted the offer, but initially received only $300,000, with the remaining $200,000 to be paid by 2006. Following the acquisition, Trauma Studios expanded its team and embarked on technological research, while DICE focused on refining their game engine and acquiring additional studios. One such studio, Sandbox, was rebranded as DICE Canada and tasked with developing the next chapter in the series, Battlefield Vietnam, which launched in 2004. Battlefield Vietnam enhanced the gameplay mechanics first introduced in Battlefield 1942, yet it largely resembled a modification rather than a standalone title. This perception led players to balk at the idea of spending $20 for what seemed like a mere update to an existing game, especially when a similar gaming experience could be obtained through a free mod, Eve of Destruction, for Battlefield 1942. Despite its solid fan base and favorable reviews, Battlefield Vietnam failed to reach sales of even 200,000 units, marking its series' first major setback. Patrick Soderlund decisively shut down DICE Canada, citing lack of profitability. Ironically, such audacity for controversial decisions will eventually allow him to ascend to the role of EA's vice president. In the meantime, DICE and Trauma Studios were collaborating on what was anticipated to be a groundbreaking release, Battlefield 2. However, just 2 weeks before its launch, Soderlund mandated that Trauma Studios move from New York to Stockholm. When they declined the offer, he promptly dissolved the studio. As a result, Trauma Studios never received the $200,000 they were promised, nor a share of the game's profits, and they were even excluded from the game's credits. Fortunately for the gaming community, these dark events didn't reflect on the quality of the game itself, and Battlefield 2, released in June 2005, was a major hit as it surpassed all expectations. Battlefield 2 holds the title of the franchise's best game in the eyes of many original fans, and rightfully so. The game boasted an array of 30 intricate maps, introduced a new class system and a commander role, and featured the now iconic squad system and projectile ballistics that became a hallmark of the series. The game was also lauded for its array of enhancements, including markedly upgraded graphics, physics, and gameplay balancing, as well as voice-over IP technology, which was a novelty for online video games at the time. Esteemed gaming publications such as X-Play, Computer Gaming World, Yahoo Games, and GameSpy gave Battlefield 2 their highest ratings. PC Gamer and GameSpot went a step further, honoring it with the prestigious Game of the Year award. Sales of Battlefield 2 skyrocketed, with over 1 million copies flying off the shelves in the first month alone, a remarkable feat for that era. By the following July, sales had climbed to over 2.2 million. However, the 2014 shutdown of GameSpy meant that many games, Battlefield 2 included, lost their master servers, yet the game's community remained resilient, with private servers continuing to operate. In a significant move in 2006, EA acquired DICE for a total of 175 million kronas. Following the acquisition, DICE's innovation team embarked on a 3-year hiatus to develop a new engine, which would later be known as Frostbite, EA's proprietary home studio engine. During this period, EA and the remaining DICE team were experimenting with various creative concepts and settings for franchise's next big game. In that era of innovation, DICE launched 2 fresh titles in the Battlefield series, Battlefield Modern Combat, marking the franchise's console debut and exclusivity, and Battlefield 2142, which delved into a futuristic setting. Critics and players alike received these games positively, with average ratings hovering around 80% on review aggregators. Despite this, sales did not soar, and neither title reached the milestone of 200,000 copies sold. However, this did not spell disappointment for EA and DICE. They extracted 2 critical lessons that would significantly influence the Battlefield series. Console games could generate more revenue with equivalent sales compared to PC, and players showed a stronger affinity for modern warfare settings over futuristic ones. Armed with this feedback and after careful analysis, EA released Battlefield Bad Company in June 2008 on 7th-generation consoles. This installment established the groundwork for the franchise's future titles. A notable feature was the freedom for players to destroy buildings with explosives, adding a layer of strategy and environmental interaction not seen in its competitors. The addition of a story mode, penned by Frederick Agatoft, was an unexpected delight. The narrative was rich with thrilling moments and infused with humor.
This is supposed to be a stealth mission. Breach that door.
Okay.
However, the game had its shortcomings. Critics and players pointed out the clunky controls, dated graphics, poor AI, and a server limit of 24 players, which was a limitation due to the less powerful console hardware compared to PCs. Despite these issues, Bad Company managed to sell 2.5 million copies, and because it was a console exclusive, it generated 60% more revenue than Battlefield 2. Although it was a commendable title, Bad Company is no longer available for online purchase, and its servers were shut down at the end of 2023. EA and DICE were encouraged by the performance and sales figures, maintaining a generally optimistic outlook, and were confident in producing a sequel to Bad Company. The development of the next Bad Company installment was projected to span 2 years, during which EA would engage in extensive research. Amidst the 2008 economic crisis, a new trend merged in the gaming industry: free-to-play casual games that appealed to a broad demographic, especially children. In response, EA tasked DICE and their subsidiary, Easy Studios, with exploring this domain. Battlefield Heroes emerged as a free-to-play, cartoon-style game built on the Refraction Engine 2 and resembled a hero shooter akin Team Fortress 2. Meanwhile, Battlefield 1943 served as a console remake of Battlefield 1942, utilizing the updated Frostbite engine. The developers prided themselves on enhanced destruction physics, though ironically, many maps were dotted with indestructible bunkers, adding a humorous contrast. Neither game achieved significant financial success, and by 2015, the servers for both had been shut down. However, the development of these titles was crucial for Electronic Arts to chart the franchise's future trajectory. Player feedback revealed that the core fan base resided primarily on personal computers, and there was a strong demand for the next installment to be PC-compatible. Battlefield Bad Company 2 launched in March 2010 across consoles, PCs, and even mobile platforms like Android and iOS. It was the first game in the franchise to introduce features such as health regeneration, weapon customization, and matchmaking via EA's Origin service. The game's environmental destruction is still regarded by many as the franchise's best, despite the Levolution technology not being introduced until the next installment. The game also marked the series' first direct competition with Call of Duty, even poking fun at Modern Warfare 2 in an in-game dialogue. Bad Company 2 was a resounding success, even spawning a major DLC Vietnam, which outperformed the previous Battlefield Vietnam game. Players reveled in the chaos they could create across various maps with a range of weapons and war machines, applauding EA and DICE for their return to PC. However, it wasn't without its criticisms. Original fans were disappointed by the restriction on community modding, and the mandatory use of the third-party launcher, Origin, was widely disliked, as such launchers were still considered unusual and unacceptable at the time. Despite these drawbacks, the game's strengths far outweighed its weaknesses, leading to over 12 million copies sold, a 500% increase compared to its predecessor, with the average rating being 87% across gaming platform and 67% on iOS. While the official servers for Bad Company 2 were shut down in December 2023, custom dedicated servers remain online. Analyzing the outcomes of Bad Company 2, DICE and EA identified several key preferences among players: a fondness for extensive destruction, modern warfare, and engaging in rampant chaos. This feedback was instrumental in shaping DICE's strategy for their upcoming release. However, before this could materialize, EA mandated the release of 2 additional Battlefield games: Play for Free and Online. These free-to-play games, developed on the outdated Refraction engine, unfortunately, did not resonate with the audience. Their lack of success led to their discontinuation in 2015. In 2011, just a year after the launch of Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3 was introduced to the world. This game was essentially an upgraded version of Bad Company 2, built on the newly enhanced Frostbite Engine 2. This allowed DICE to enhance the game's scale, graphics, physics, and environmental destruction capabilities. It also introduced a groundbreaking Levolution technology, which, despite being experimental and limited to a few maps, was enough to captivate gamers and outshine competitors. The single-player campaign also saw significant improvements in storytelling, featuring iconic missions such as Thunder Run and Going Hunting. Many fans, myself included, consider it to be the best single-player campaign in the entire franchise. Battlefield 3 was a resounding success, with one minor hiccup: the external multiplayer search engine, Battlelog, which operated in the browser. While Battlelog was a useful tool for tracking player performance and achievements, the average computer at the time had only 4 gigabytes of RAM, leading to frequent FPS drops that frustrated many PC users. Despite this, both critics and gamers praised the game, giving it an average rating of 86%. It sold over 15 million copies in less than 10 months, setting an unprecedented record for DICE. It was such a big success that Battlefield 3 is now the oldest game in the franchise, which still has a working servers. Following its remarkable success, the franchise took a 2-year hiatus, during which it kept players engaged with intriguing DLCs that introduced unique maps and weapons. In October 2013, DICE unveiled their latest blockbuster, Battlefield 4, built on the newly updated Frostbite Engine 3. Battlefield 4 was essentially an expanded version of its predecessors, offering larger maps, an enhanced Levolution system, and additional water and air transport options. However, it was essentially the same game that DICE and EA had been marketing for the 4th consecutive time, a fact that did not sit well with all gamers. Despite its impressive graphics, an improved story mode that focused more on character development, and a plethora of Easter eggs, it struggled to compete with heavyweights like GTA 5 and The Last of Us. Although initial sales were strong, Battlefield 4's long-term sales fell short of its predecessors, with just under 7 million copies sold worldwide by 2015. Nevertheless, Battlefield 4 fared better than the subsequent installment in the franchise, which marked the beginning of a period of uncertainty and neglect in the franchise's history. Following the unsuccessful release of Dead Space 3, Visceral Games was on the brink of closure. However, EA chose to give the struggling studio another opportunity and commissioned them to develop Battlefield Hardline. Despite the limited support from DICE, who were preoccupied with Star Wars Battlefront, Visceral Games rose to the challenge and delivered an impressive product. Battlefield Hardline, launched in March 2015, was a remarkable game featuring innovative modes and a near-flawless story campaign. However, its unique concept of urban warfare between gangs and police failed to resonate with the audience. Despite its potential, Hardline's association with the Battlefield franchise may have hindered its success. Even with a respectable average rating of 75% and a substantial advertising campaign, the game struggled to sell more than 2 million copies, leading to its servers being shut down in 2023. This perceived failure led to the closure of Visceral Games and the dismissal of all its employees. Fortunately for gamers, only a year later, in October 2016, DICE released Battlefield 1. The game received the highest rating since Battlefield 2 with an average of 92% and was nominated for 15 video game awards, winning 2. It sold a record-breaking 21 million copies, making it the best-selling game of 2016. Battlefield 1 was widely praised by fans for its perfectly balanced gameplay, tactical environment destruction, behemoth system, and stunning graphics. However, following its development, Patrick Söderlund left DICE, taking most of the experienced developers with him to establish Embark Studios, where they created a competitive clone of Battlefield, The Finals. The remaining developers at DICE, mostly those hired before Battlefield 1's development, were left to deal with incompetent management and the rise of woke culture. As a result, Battlefield 5, released in November 2018, was a disaster. DICE faced criticism for rewriting World War II stories and, in response, simply told their fans not to buy the game. The game also suffered from poor gameplay balancing, a lack of content, and inadequate community support. Despite these issues, Battlefield 5 was nominated for over a dozen game awards and even won one. It received an average rating of 80% from journalists, but the gamers' rating was a mere 30%, with just under 7 million copies sold worldwide. Recognizing the need for experienced leadership at DICE, Electronic Arts appointed Vince Zampella, the creator of Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, and Titanfall, to lead the development of Battlefield 2042. Vince Zampella, a highly skilled game designer, catered to the desires of gamers by shifting the game balance towards infantry combat and masterminding an ingenious advertising campaign that left millions of gamers in the shaking orgasm. However, despite Zampella's talent, his team lacked the necessary development experience, and the development process was sabotaged by COVID. As a result, DICE was unable to complete the game before its scheduled release date in November 2021, leading to the release of a disappointingly unfinished product. The game was far from being complete at the time of release, making it a laughingstock of the gaming industry and the most unfinished AAA project ever released. Unfortunately, the trend of releasing unfinished games has only intensified in recent years. Despite these challenges, Zampella remained committed and continued to improve the game season after season. 7 seasons later, Battlefield 2042 finally resembled the game it was intended to be. It sold just over 4 million copies, with the majority of revenue coming from the seasonal battle passes. The game's ratings improved from an average of 50% at release to 70% after Season 6. Recently, EA announced its decision to cease support for Battlefield 2042 to concentrate on the development of Battlefield 6, rumored to be a direct sequel to Battlefield 4 and a prequel to 2042. The question remains, can DICE restore the Battlefield series to its former glory, or has Söderlund's departure marked the end of the series as we know it? While I want to believe in the former, the current chaos in the industry and EA's apparent greed make me skeptical. With 15 Battlefield games already released, perhaps it's time for the franchise to take a break. Not permanently, but for a while. What are your thoughts? Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more franchise breakdowns, and let me know in the comments which Battlefield game is your favorite. For me, it's Battlefield 1. This is the Games Guru signing off. Much love to all of you, and see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.